Oh no!
That's right, today we're going to be taking a look at... Yeah, what he said. Alright, so before I get this video started properly, I want to make it clear that the world is one of, if not my favorite stands in JoJo. So this review is going to be pretty biased considering the fact that I feel like it's been done very dirty in this game. But, I mean, I'll explain why in this video, that's why I'm making it. Regardless, now that I've made my bias clear, we'll jump into the moveset for the world. The world's kit consists of knives, a kick barrage, a stand leap, time skip, a time... Alright, yeah, that. And he also has... Alright, am I making this video or are you, Chief? Chill out. In regards to the world's moveset, this is probably going to be the longest section of the video because I'm going to talk about exactly why the world is so terrible and why the moveset is the main reason for that. There are quite a few factors in YBA that determine what is and isn't a good stand. A few that immediately come to my mind when I'm thinking about it are good mobility, a reliable stun, a reliable block break, powerful super moves, or high base stand damage. Each one of these factors alone has the potential of carrying a stand, but combining multiple is what ends up making some of the best stands in the game. The problem with the world's moveset is that it consists of quite a few mediocre versions of these attributes. It has a bad projectile, one bad and one mediocre super, no stuns whatsoever, and an incredibly unreliable block break. The only thing that the world really has going for it is that it has really good mobility. But that mobility doesn't mean anything if you can't get any damage. But I'm not going to talk about that quite yet, I'm going to leave that for the strategies portion. And speaking of that, let's jump right into it. As for strategies, well, I'm going to start off with the absolute best strategy you can use for this stand, Roka it. Just get rid of it. It's terrible. But if you're not willing to do that, or you're trying to use this to get your heaven quest done in order to get the world over heaven, I'll do my best to help you out. Since the world has 0 stuns and effectively no combos, you're going to be relying a whole lot on your knives and your mouse ones. And unfortunately, depending on the players, the knives might be completely worthless since they can just be blocked and have a massive startup, meaning the enemy can see you take them out and go, "He's throwing knives, hold F, you've been invalidated." If they're stupid and not blocking your knives though, you can try to get combos off of knives. Well, when I say combos, I mean clicks, because you don't have any combos. If you hit someone with knives, there is a small amount of stun on them, and so if you land the move, you can time skip right on top of the enemy and start trying to beat them to death. As far as I'm aware, if you're really, really fast, you can confirm things out of knives, such as mouse ones or a zoom punch or something like that. But the window is really, really tight, and most of the time, if the enemy blocks right after getting hit by the knives, they're just going to block all your attacks anyway. As for when you should use Kick Barrage, this one's really, really niche, and you have to be really careful when using it. If your opponent has any sort of counter whatsoever, I would recommend just not even touching the Kick Barrage key the entire fight, because they can use a counter right at the end of your Kick Barrage and screw you over. Mind you, it is possible to bait them by using the Kick Barrage and then pointing it backwards so you miss, but sometimes the hitbox gets all janky and hits forward anyway and you still get countered. So if I were you, I just wouldn't go near it against anything with a counter. As for things that don't have counters, sometimes you can get away with time skipping on people, dashing and using a Kick Barrage, but most of the time when you time skip, people will block and then they'll immediately parry you, since the Kick Barrage has a very, very obvious audio cue when you start it. The other thing about Kick Barrage that I almost feel like I don't have to mention, but I see it so often that I feel like I probably should, is never, ever, ever use a Kick Barrage after a barrage. It's stupid easy to parry, and anyone that's literally just holding down the block key after you do a barrage will automatically parry it. So don't do that. You just look like an idiot and you're giving the enemy a free combo. So I've talked about the knives and I've talked about the Kick Barrage. So now I'm going to talk about Time Stop and Road Roller. I'll start with the easy one, which is Road Roller. Road Roller outside of Time Stop is completely worthless. Well, that's not entirely true. It has very, very situational uses, but it is almost completely worthless. When you use Road Roller, it gives you invincibility throughout the entire move, So if a King Crimson time erases you, you can throw out a Road Roller to make yourself effectively avoid the time erase. It's not foolproof though, because if they let go of the time erase underneath your Road Roller and then use Epitaph, it'll still hit you, because for whatever reason you can counter Road Roller. Hell if I know why. So basically what I'm trying to say is, just don't use Road Roller outside of Time Stop. It doesn't even do that much damage. People can just walk out of it half the time. And it takes up your rage, which you're gonna need if you want to use your time stop. Speaking of the time stop, this is about the only redeeming quality of playing the world, and even that is kind of broken right now. The world's time stop has the potential to be a very, very powerful move against time stop stands and non-time stop stands alike. But before I show you what you should be doing to get time stops and what you should do in them, I want to show you exactly why it's broken. What you're seeing here is my best attempt at getting the maximum amount of damage you can get out of a time stop on my AFK alt account. And, well... Yes, that's correct. 1 of my knives landed in that time stop. Out of 9 knives, 1 of them functioned, which is the main reason that the world's time stop gets butchered. A bit of simple math can show us that against a non-TS resist stand with no resistances, considering that punches do about 11 damage and your knives do about 10, and you can get 3 sets of knives and 3 sets of punches, the time stop should be capable of doing 222 damage. But because the knives don't work, this time stop damage gets almost cut in half. So then the question becomes, since the knives don't work in time stop, what should you do in a time stop? Well, I'll be honest with you, you don't really lose a whole lot by going through the knives. They have very little end lag inside of your time stop, so you might as well throw them. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. If they do work, you'll do a ton of damage, and if they don't work, you don't lose that much damage. The other option you have in time stop is to use a Road Roller, although this bugs out a lot of the time. So if you are going to try to use a Road Roller, you should always dash before you use it, since when you dash and use it, it does not shoot you up into the air, which is the main problem of it glitching out. I wouldn't recommend using the Road Roller in your own time stop, since the potential for a ton of damage is there, and the Road Roller doesn't do that much damage in time stop, but it does do more damage than outside of time stop, and that perfectly segues into the Road Roller in other people's time stops. Road Roller is actually a surprisingly balanced move if you don't consider the fact that people can just walk out of it. That's just broken. The way Road Roller works is when you activate the move, it puts your stand away and then takes your stand back out when the move is over. For those who don't know, when your stand is put away, any damage you do is lessened. This means that outside of time stop, if you use a Road Roller, since all the damage is applied immediately and your stand is away, it does pitiful damage. But inside of time stop, since your stand comes back before the end of the time stop, you get a lot more damage. Now what this means in other people's time stops is you should almost always, if you get the chance, use a Road Roller in somebody else's time stop. Since you get all the extra time stop damage, the attack will apply over the whole time stop, unlike if you try to go for some other combo, and it makes you completely invincible. So if somebody time stops you, you can get away scot-free. This is just about the only time you should ever use Road Roller, but it is quite good for this purpose alone. Now, I've been talking a whole lot about time stop, but I haven't said anything about how you should be using your time stop effectively. And by that I mean how you should be time stopping others. In my opinion, the only time you should ever actually use your time stop is when you get a block break or a parry. Getting a block break nowadays is quite easy by just using either Jawbreaker or Scarlet Overdrive after some clicks because most people block, and parry is dependent on the user and the stand. The thing about getting a time stop off of a parry or block break is that your opponent just has to stand there and you're already right in front of them, which means you can get the absolute most damage possible. What it also means is that if you're going up against a stand that has time stop resistance, you can still get them with time stops. There's just enough time after a block break or a parry where if you time stop and then use a barrage immediately afterwards, you can catch time stop resist stands. And since they made it so that other people can't barrage in your time stop, they just have to take it until they get stopped, and then you can combo them. It also means that doing time stop against stands like Tusk Act 4 isn't necessarily that stupid, since they can't barrage back, so you get quite a bit of free damage. Now I think the only thing that I haven't addressed yet for the world is your rage bar. Obviously you gain rage by doing damage, and certain specs get rage faster than others. Haman notoriously is very, very slow to get rage, and boxing and spin are very quick. Rage is entirely based on the moves you hit and not the amount of damage you do. So Haman damage boosted punches don't get any more damage than non-stand summon default punches. Now when it comes to how you should use your rage, obviously, I think I've already covered this, but you shouldn't be using it on random road rollers out of nowhere, because that's just a waste. And honestly, despite my poor use of rage and using it almost exclusively for time stops, rage is a very powerful mechanic if you use it properly. Rage makes you do more damage and take less damage, which is really strong. The only problem is that you can't time skip while rage is active, meaning sometimes it can be hard to catch your opponent. The benefit to not using your rage is that you can do a time stop whenever you feel is necessary. So if you wait until you get a block break, you can get it off. But then obviously you don't get the benefits of rage since you're just using it all immediately for a time stop. Other than that, I think I've rambled on long enough on how you should be using this stand. So I'm gonna do an exclusive segment for this stand itself on how I would fix this pile of garbage. Alright, so I've talked at length about all the problems, but how exactly would I make the world a better stand? Well, first of all, I would fix the inconsistencies. Obviously, the knives should work in time stop and they don't. That's like a given. But that's not what you want to hear. You want to hear about the actual stand changes themselves. So, starting off with the knives. Knives are a projectile that, as of right now, are almost completely worthless if you're using them against someone that knows what they're doing. Based on how long the cooldown already is for knives, especially compared to the World AU, and yes, I'm going to call it the World AU now because everyone made fun of me for calling it TWOW in the last video. Thanks, guys. But anyways, the fact that the World AU's knives are not blockable, and the World's are, despite the World AU's having significantly shorter cooldown, that just doesn't add up. They should pick between either knives being blockable or not, and in my opinion, you shouldn't be able to block knives, because the World already has enough problems. The knives shouldn't be added onto that. The next thing that I think the World needs is it needs some sort of stun. Right now, Star Platinum is the quote-unquote same type of stand, and it has two of the best stuns in the game, Inhale and Starfinger. The World has nothing. The World needs a chop or something, anything that can stun, because as of right now, since it doesn't, it just can't combo. And since Paragon commented on that video I made a few days back about the fall of YBA and the M1 update, and said specifically that all of the moderators voted to revert the M1s, the World, once the M1s are gone, will go back to being completely unusable. Right now, it's at least a little bit usable since you can use clicks, but once clicks are gone, how are you going to get damage anymore? It's going to be impossible. So the World needs some sort of stun move. Other than those things, I've got two more changes for the World, and the first one's relatively simple, and the second one is probably going to be pretty controversial. The first change is that if you get hit by Road Roller, you should not be able to just walk out of it. If you take any sort of damage from Road Roller, whether it's at the start, in the middle, or at the end, you should be locked in place for the duration of the move, and it should also act like a grab, so that all of the damage automatically applies, and sometimes it doesn't just bug out and not work. I feel like that's kind of a given and should already be the case, but it isn't, so it needs to be said. And the last and final thing I think they should do to the World is I think they should do away with the Rage Bar. I'll be honest with you, the World's time stop and Star Platinum's time stop are way more balanced than Star Platinum of the World and the World Over Heavens. And that's because they're way shorter. Now having a Rage Bar on Star Platinum makes a little bit of sense, but having a Rage Bar on regular The World makes almost no sense whatsoever. The World's whole gimmick was introducing us to time stop, so I feel like it's fitting that he should be able to freely use the time stop and not have to rely on a Rage Bar. Now if this was a good stand that actually had people playing it like Star Platinum, they'd probably get really upset since Rage is such a good thing for a stand to have. But for me, I feel like the World just doesn't need the Rage since it can't really get anything off of it anyway, and so it should just have a regular time stop like Star Platinum the World and the World Over Heaven. Obviously, the same length that it is now. I know there are probably going to be a lot of people that disagree with this because they just really hate time stop, but I think it's a relatively reasonable change. And with that, that's all the changes I think that should happen to the World. It needs to have its bugs fixed, it needs to get a stun, the knives shouldn't be blockable, Road Roller should actually work if you land it, and the Rage Bar should be removed in favor of just being able to freely time stop. With all that being said though, I feel like I already did my conclusion in this own kind of segment, so I guess it's a how I would change the world and a conclusion at the same time, so I guess that's it? I don't know, I got nothing else. So yeah, video's over now. But before I completely conclude, it wouldn't be an Eclipse video if I wasn't complaining about bugs. While I was trying to get background footage for this video, I ran into some clowns in main game abusing the Star Platinum the World invincibility glitch. I don't want to directly out them because obviously that would cause a witch hunt, but if you were a Tusk Act 4 or a Beach Boy fighting of the world in main game and you were abusing the Star Platinum the World invincibility, you know who you are, and you know that you're a scumbag. Anyways, with that, we're done. So have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you next time.